Welcome to Start Before You're Ready, the podcast that proves that you don't need to wait for the perfect moment to begin your journey towards better health and happiness. I'm your host, Kelly Young. Remember, the first step is often the hardest, but it's always worth taking. Hey guys, it's Kelly, and I am back with a very exciting episode of Start Before You're Ready. If you are looking to make positive changes in your nutrition, this is an episode for you. I am here with the one and only Amy Beyer. She is our KBC nutrition coach. She's also a premier KBC instructor. And today we're going to talk specifically about her signature program, Clean and Shred. Amy is bringing this program back to the KBC community and potentially beyond because of the incredible results that our members have received from this program and because of the demand. People are asking for this program back. And I just, before I let Amy introduce herself, one thing I want to say that I think is incredibly telling about Amy as a coach is that students go back for more over and over again. And you could look at that as like, well, wait, if they already do her program, why do they need to do it again? Well, that's the way it works, because each time you take, it's not too overwhelming where you're trying to do too much. And each time you take on one more layer, and Amy tries to educate and coach sustainability. So it is something that they're going to need a refresh on potentially. And they love the program so much and they have such great experiences that they want to come back. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy to introduce herself and maybe a little bit of background on just her as a nutrition coach and where she is right now as far as her philosophy.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. That was quite an introduction. I am coming up on my 10th anniversary of nutrition coaching for KBC, and I really feel like I'm hitting my stride. Nutrition coaching is something that I came about, and if you listen to my earlier podcast with Kelly, via my son's diabetes diagnosis, and wasn't the traditional route. I didn't study nutrition in school. And I really feel like it is such a fascinating field because you're constantly learning, and I'm constantly modifying how I coach. And people might think, oh, well, it kind of all stays the same, right? Eating healthy food. But really, we're learning so much. It is such a young science comparatively to a lot of what's out there. And I like just learning the best ways to coach people. And I feel like the more experience I get, the older I get, the more I understand my clients and I'm able to develop approaches that really work in the real world. Because anybody can do anything short term, right? It's the long-term sustainability and that habit development that I found success with. And I love it when people come back because we do have a history. And I know what their work situation is like or their family situation, what foods I can push them to eat, what their no-nos are. And I feel like we really can just reach that higher level of sustainable habits when people come back. And what was so unique about Clean and Shred from the beginning, this program was started during the height of COVID. So it was virtual. It was my first completely virtual program. In the past, I'd done in-person meetings, but then we would check in on Facebook. And this was my first Zoom workshop. But honestly, I had no idea how it was going to go. And I don't know if it was because we were all so desperate and starved for connection at that time, but it went really well. And it became a signature program that people really felt they could find a place to start from. And it's tough, especially at first. It's, a lot of my other programs are more about, let me meet you where you are and we'll go from there. And that's how I tend to be with one-on-one coaching. This one it's pretty intense. And I tell people it's going to feel like a part-time job because I'm going to be telling you a lot of things that you're used to eating that we're going to take out for just a few weeks, but it's really a reset. And that's the word that when you hear people talk about the clean and shred, they say they love, at first they don't like it because we're taking a lot of sugar out, we're taking a lot of processed foods out, we're taking a lot of alcohol out, and it's hard at first. It's hard. And I've done the program a couple times with the groups, and it's hard on me because we all, oh, I'll just have a little bit of chocolate, just one glass of wine, and it starts to add up, and we develop habits and get into those habits. So, but what I really love about the program is it's an education. And I think we talked about this in the last podcast I did. That's really my approach, is I just want to educate people, give them as much information as possible so then they can decide, yes, this is what I want to put into my body, or this is what I want to feed my family. And it's not just, boring. I try to make it fun. I try to make it engaging. We do lots of things like tracking your plant intake. That's something I do with all my groups, like try to get to that 30 plants a week. And, I try to make it as fun and doable as possible, but really trying to teach people to read ingredient labels, remodel their mindset on foods. Sometimes all of us, myself included, I get very stuck in a rut of eating these foods. And then sometimes be like, okay, I need to, it's not working for me right now. I need to change it up. So I think just taking those things and working really hard to teach people, remodel their mindset a little bit is always my goal with the program, and what people end up really feeling successful about in the program.
Yeah, so I've obviously heard a lot over time from our students about the things that they take with them. I often hear in my conversations is, well, ever since Clean and Shred, I fill in the blank. And that is really powerful. They might not say, I do the Clean and Shred program in completion all the time, but here's the things that I took away that I'm still doing. And I think that is really, really valuable. And I like what you said a lot, Amy, about, in the beginning, it's intense. And a lot of people like that. They think they like that. They think that's what they want. They want to be told what to do. And I think that the framework of your program in particular is very doable, in that you're introducing things back in. So it's not like you're starting off with this huge deficit and deprivation, and then it just keeps getting worse. It's like, oh, well, on week 3, I can have this. And I really, really like that. I think that resonates really well with our members. And just from a palate perspective, I think there's so much to be said about our palates. And this is something I've been talking to my children about since they were young, as to why I didn't want them to eat out as much and eat fast food. Because once you eat those foods, normal food doesn't taste right? It's like, well, this is kind of bland. But if you've trained yourself to eat vegetables and foods that just taste like they are. And I personally have a very rich palate. I like to flavor my food intensely, but it does really help, especially as you mentioned with the sugar. I think the sugar is a huge one for people. They don't even have a sense of what sweet is because of some of the foods that they're choosing to eat. I've heard that over and over again from your students, that it really helps with sugar cravings, which I would argue is probably our clientele's biggest issue. Sugar and alcohol are probably, are probably the biggest issue. So what would you say, Amy, like just kind of a macro standpoint, how does it help people improve their nutrition overall?
Well, I think going back to what you just said about their palate, and that's one of the first things I hear, because at the beginning of the program, we are taking out most added sugars, not everything, but apples start to taste sweet again. Mm-hmm. Berries start to taste sweet again. And foods they didn't necessarily think they liked, they try maybe roasting veggies instead of having them raw in a salad. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, wow, I'm really picking up on the flavors. I actually do like sweet potatoes, or I do like, eggplant. And so I think just adapting to getting back to real foods again. Yeah. And learning how to cook them in a manner that is something you can maintain, because none of us have time to cook, 1 to 2 hour recipes every day in a way that's beyond the quick process convenient. And it was funny. I just had a call with Corrine this morning. Corrine was on your podcast a while back, and she was saying that one of the things when she did a program with me last year was I always provide a big library of recipes. Many are from me, but many are from people throughout the year. The community has added to this ongoing document of recipes. And she said, in the past, my kids have always thought of the food I cooked when I'm trying something new as diet food. And they were resistant to try it. They didn't like it. And she said, everything I ate from that program, they were like, well, this is actually good.
Oh,
So, and that's something I've
any
heard.
compliment from a kid. Yeah.
Right. From KK too. Kristen Kime, when she does clean and shred, her kids always get excited because they know mom's going to be cooking these good recipes, which traditionally families would be like, oh, I don't want that. But it's learning to cook with real food, but in ways that it's delicious.
Yeah. What would you say, Amy, to someone that doesn't cook at all? Would you say don't do clean and shred?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'd say it would be tough, and I'm going to probably push them to cook some. I do, of course, try to offer as many convenience options as possible. Honestly, I would say it depends on their budget. Because if they have the budget to buy pre-prepped and pre-cooked items, then they would be okay.
Yeah.
But if they don't have the budget for that, it's going to be really tough because, I'm all for grab a rotisserie chicken occasionally or, other types of convenience food. But also knowing a lot of the stuff, even if you buy it somewhere pre-prepped or pre-cooked, it has a lot of things that you would not put in at home. And just to be eating that around the clock is hard. So I think you'd have to have somewhere you could access clean, fresh, pre-prepared foods in order to do it.
What about restaurant eating? What do you encourage your students that are doing clean and shred to do in restaurants?
So clean and shred definitely build in splurges to the program. We call them strategic splurges or intentional indulgences. And eating out can go one of two ways. It can be I'm going to be really good and order a salad with salmon or chicken. And, if people are eating out more routinely, like for work lunches, things like that, then obviously I'm encouraging them to go that route, get the dressing on the side, maybe skip some of the cheese. But I do try to make them aware that any eating out is a little bit of a splurge or an indulgence because you're not controlling the ingredients. On the other hand, there's eating out that's, I want a cheeseburger and a beer. Or for me, like I love pizza and a big glass of wine on Friday night. Those, I tell them, enjoy. Don't worry about it. I'd love it if you added a side of veggies or a salad to go with something. Try not to make it a 1,500 to 2,000 calorie bomb, but otherwise enjoy, because if you're eating out, if you're going to a party, if you've got a happy hour, you're not going to do well the rest of the week if you know you've got to go out and just be like, all right, I'm just going to have the carrots and hummus and guess I'll have a sparkling water. Like if that's your jam, great. But if it's not, then nothing's going to last long term. So I think just finding that balance, and I know balance is a overused, tricky word, especially in fitness and nutrition, but you really have to find that balance. And it's a moving target. My balance now is way different than my balance 6-7 years ago. I was a nutrition coach during both times. I was a fitness instructor both times, but it's different, right? It's how I've evolved, how my palate's evolved. And honestly, as we age, I feel like we can get away with a lot less. And so part of that is just keeping up with my age. For me is, I can't eat out as much. I can't drink as many glasses of wine. So I think just evolving with where you are and what stage, if you're coming from. I do have clients who eat out almost every day. And that is something I'm like, okay, because they travel a lot for work. They don't have a lot of options. And so we're constantly working on the trade-offs. So if you're traveling a lot for work, maybe on the weekend, you have a fun date night in instead of going out since you've already eaten out so much. So I think it's, working within the confines of what your life looks like for eating out.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. I know that planning is a big part of your program. What are some tips to make clean eating more accessible and sustainable?
So planning is a big part. And I remember kind of adapting this. I remember first feeling like I don't want to put too much on people. I don't want to be too demanding. And I've actually become more demanding as I've coached because I've realized that, and I think this is something we've talked about many times, clients come to me, come to us, come to members of the team because they do need coaching. They do need guidelines. They do need parameters. So I need to say, here's my expectations. Now, in that same sentence, I say, you can meet that expectation in any one of these 10 ways. So the first thing I tell them to do, and when I do programs, Clean and Shred specifically, everything's in a week increment, because I feel like that's enough time that they can figure out time in their schedule to plan, cook, do all those things. But it's not so much time that it's, you can't rein it back in. So first thing I tell them to do is look at their schedule for the upcoming week. And Clean and Shred specifically, I have the meetings before the week starts. So if the meeting's on Wednesday or Thursday, it's been in the past, we don't start the week till Monday. So they have all that time because it is such an incremental part of the program to plan. So first thing I say, look at your schedule for next week. What does your work schedule look like? What are your commitments with your family? If you have children, what are their activities or sports or school commitments you need to be at? Are you traveling for work? Are you traveling for fun? Do you have a girls' night out? All the things. And then plan for at least one or two unexpected things to come up. Maybe somebody gets sick in your family, or you have a last minute addition to your calendar. So once you look at your schedule, make your plan for the week. And I've had everything from gorgeous spreadsheet with links to recipes, all meals, all snacks planned with clip art. I mean, those are my teachers. And then I've had a sticky note that's posted upside down, so I have to turn my iPad to read it, and everything in between. And all of it is fine. I really just want them to think about what they're doing, because once you get it in your brain, it becomes easier for your brain to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing this week, instead of waiting till Tuesday night and you're exhausted and you got to drive carpool to be like, what's for dinner? Oh, I forgot to defrost the chicken. So once they have the plan made, no matter how complex or simple, go grocery shopping, obviously, get everything you need. I always encourage them to buy a plan B food, whether that's a freezer meal, a pantry meal, something that, when life happens, you can throw something together rather than going through the drive-through. And that's all I say. Plan B just has to be better than takeout. That's all. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be 30 grams of protein. Doesn't have to have 40 vegetables. Everyone will eat it, and it's better than takeout. And then once you have that, during the program, I ask them to prep for 1 hour on the weekend. 1 hour, to be honest, really, unless you're really efficient, like probably Kelly Young can get a lot done in an hour of prepping, because she's a master. But for me, that's not a ton, but it's enough. And it's not taking away from people's weekends. And I ask them to just prep whatever's the hardest for you. For me, protein's always the hardest. So getting that ready, getting the chicken marinated or whatever, or throwing it in the crock pot or whatever it is. A lot of people, it's lunches. They make their lunches for the week, which I think is amazing, because then it's grab and go in the morning during that hectic time.
Okay, so good, Amy. You said a lot of really good things. And the first thing I want to acknowledge is you making them prove that they have a plan, because that is really powerful. And that is what people need. That is what they need. I think we've both learned this over time, is that if there's not proof, a picture, document, then it didn't happen. No offense, guys. We love you, but you need to be accountable. You say that. We've gotten that from you. Like, I need to be accountable. And what I found, and I bet you did too, is a lot like my STAR students, my teacher's pets, they'll text me on the side. Here's a picture of me doing this. Here's my list for the week, Kelly. But I love what you're doing in this program, Amy, by including everybody, because some people are more shy. Some people, they're not going to want to who cares about what I'm eating or whatever. But you're saying this is a requirement. Before we even start this program, I need to know your plan of when you're going to plan your food. I just think that is incredibly brilliant. And I love the evolution of that. And I love that you said, I used to feel bad asking people, but I know we've had a lot of conversations, and we always feel bad when people don't succeed in our programs, right? I mean, we put our heart and soul into what we do. And if someone drops off, we feel bad. They feel bad. We feel bad that they feel bad. It's like this whole thing. We just want people to be successful. So what you're doing with that is really powerful, and it shouldn't be understated. The other thing that I love, that I am a huge fan of, is the plan B. And I think just having something in your freezer, something in your pantry, it might not be perfect and it might involve a can of tuna. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's something that your family can eat, and better than takeout is one of my very favorite sayings. Like sometimes, you buy I think there was one, I don't use it anymore, but there was something at Costco that I used to buy. It was like chicken and vegetables. God knows where the chicken was from. Who cares? And I would cook it up, stir fry it up. I'm like, better than takeout. And I knew, at least I could read the ingredients, and I didn't wake up puffy and 3 pounds heavier because of whatever's in the whatever other food. So I think that's really, really good. And I think that is probably one of the things that we talked about, like the after effect of the program, teaching people to do that and forcing them to do that, that's part of their repertoire or arsenal of like, okay, now I've always got a plan B. I really, really love that. I'm going to add one more thing, and not everybody does this, and I don't even always do it. And it actually requires a lot of planning and a bigger block of time. But when I am most successful, I don't put my food away. Nothing goes away. Chicken gets marinated, the vegetables get cut, everything gets out of the containers. One of the reasons why I do this, and I find this less and less now, shout out to Costco, like I need to do that anymore. But sometimes at Costco, there would be like a yucky lemon, and I buy the bag of lemons. There'd be like a yucky lemon in the middle, or a yucky potato, or a yucky tomato. So I take everything out of everything, and not necessarily, I like to arrange it, but I do feel like that is a big help. Slice the Brussels sprouts in half. Like once I get the cutting board out, it's like, what else can I do? That could be overwhelming for people. I love your 1 hour. And I've actually heard that over and over again from your students that have taken your program, that I can do this for an hour, like not to overwhelm yourself. It doesn't have to be meals. And let's talk about that for a minute, because do you food prep like that? Do you like make a lasagna? I know you don't make a lasagna, but is that how you food prep, or do you batch stuff?
I'm a little of both.
Okay.
So I try to usually make Sundays like my family dinner night. And actually, I think that I got that idea from you years and years ago, because we were just starting to get to that stage where everybody had something at night as my boys were getting into high school. And I remember you saying you always tried to have family dinner on Sunday. So I think I announced at some point, or just decided, we're having family dinner on Sunday night. And it was kind of a natural, because honestly, there's usually not a lot going on Sunday, but I did start to protect that time. And so it became a day when, I have more time in the afternoon to prepare a nice meal. So I usually make Sunday dinner a bigger dinner, not just from it's a better recipe or whatever, but I make a lot of it. And, you have 3 boys like I do, so they eat a lot of food. And so that kind of became a tradition. And then now with 2 of my older boys being in college, I don't eat quite as much food, but I still like to have a lot. So what I do now a lot is I'll try to either bake a lot of chicken, or if I can talk Jason into grilling, if the weather's nice, I'll have him make, like, I'm not exaggerating, like 10 pounds of meat, and I'll cook a bunch of vegetables. And so it's dinner, but then it's also a little bit of batch cooking at the same time.
Yep. I love that. That's exactly what I do too.
Yeah.
I typically, because most food tastes better right when you cook it. So I try to, at least when I cook the chicken, I cook it all, because why not? But at least we have it that one night, and then slice up the rest of it. This is so random. But I actually have been meaning to say this, and I don't know if it's still there, but Costco has the most amazing cutting board. It's very large, and it's wood, and it's rimmed, and it was like $13 at Christmas time. And I bought it for Andrew, because when we would have dinner parties and make a filet, he would cut up the filet and have the juice everywhere, like while people are sitting there. I was like, oh my God, gross. And like, can you use something? So I bought it for him, but it's now mine. I use it for everything. Well, I guess that's bad, but I do use it for everything. I use it for everything cooked. I just, like, once I get it out, I always say, like, what else? What else? It's just funny how, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The littlest things can excite us, right? When it comes to cooking. Like if we have one little, like, obviously, for me, I have a Pampered Chef chopper, and I just love, like, if I'm making a soup or I'm making, I don't know, it just seems to work for everything that I cook personally. Do you have anything like that, Amy? Like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be able to live without this kitchen tool, or...
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because last year, when all the stuff came out about microplastics, so I got rid of I had a ton of plastic cutting boards. And so I tried to I honestly, I kept a few just because sometimes, it's just
Me
easy
too.
and they go in the dishwasher.
Mine.
But I tried to upgrade my cutting boards, and like the real wood ones are expensive. So I'm going to have to see if that Costco one is there. But then at the same time, I decided I don't have like the big knife collection that we got when we got married. That's been gone for years. But I like a chef's knife. I like a short handle chef's knife. So I'm like, I'm going to get some just really nice ones. And I just got two really, really nice. I mean, they were under $100, but they were still expensive. But it just elevates the
Life-changing.
process. Yes. And I always hand wash the knife so it maintains its sharpness and the cutting board. But they don't even get put away usually because I'm just reaching right back for them. So I like that idea of investing in a few things that make it easier, more fun. And I always travel with my knife. I travel with my knife and my frying pan.
Not on the airplane.
Well, no. If we're driving
when you get
somewhere.
To your place. I've gotten a chopper compensated and I was so mad. I was furious. And I'm like, how could I hurt somebody with this? I'm like clicking in the thing. It's sharp enough that they're not. Meanwhile, that was through conveyor belt. I mean, that was really stupid. Andrew was like rolling his eyes, but yeah, that's really good. I'll add one more thing to that I started doing that's a game changer in my cooking because I use it a lot is I keep my garlic press and a bowl of garlic right next to the stove. I think it looks cute. And, it's just cute. It's so easy. It's so easy. So, because I do like the flavor of that to add to food. So that's really good. You talk a lot about being proactive with nutrition. That's kind of one of your signature stances. Can you elaborate on the difference between being proactive versus reactive when it comes to food choices?
Yeah, so a little bit that goes back to the planning, right? Because I think when we plant things in our brain, we are able to be a little more proactive. What am I going to be up against this week as far as my schedule? What do I need to plan around as far as my ability to prepare meals? I think sometimes where people get in trouble is they have the best of intentions and we get home and we're exhausted, myself included. I know Tuesday and Thursday afternoon into evening, I teach class. If I wait and plan dinner, if I don't have something started before I leave for class, you can forget it because I'm just done. I'm exhausted. And for a lot of people, that's not that late, but for me, no, I'm a morning person. It's like that's like 10 o'clock for me. So I have to be proactive. I have to say, okay, I'm getting home at this time. I'm going to rinse off, and then I just need to have it ready to either go in the oven or get it out of the crock pot, finish it off, whatever it is. Also, I think for a lot of people, being proactive is going back to we talked about going out to eat. If I'm going to a restaurant or a place that's unfamiliar to me, I almost always look at the menu in advance because I want to see. I know what I like. I know what my nutrition requirements are. I know how far I'm willing to go as far as pushing the indulgence button. But I want to know what my options are because once I'm there, the drinks are flowing, I'm having fun with friends. I might not make the best decision in the moment, and then I'll kind of regret it halfway through the meal. And it's also, like I said, getting your brain to recognize that this is who we are, coming up with that routine so you can eliminate more decision making because I think there was I have trouble believing this, but I heard something just last week that we make over 30,000 decisions a day. I don't see how that can be true, but even if
everything's a decision, how fast you walk, everything's a decision. I could see that. I don't like that. That sounds stressful to me, but yes.
So anything that we can think about in advance instead of making the decision in the moment. I mean, we hear time and time again, like, oh, I'd plan to go to class or I'd plan to, do this. And the moment we don't always make the best decisions. So I like to try to take decision making out of it as much as possible.
I love that.
For me, just automating as much as possible. Like, this is what I have for breakfast every day. I don't have to think about it. It's done. And being proactive is also being prepared. I like to tell people have 10 go-to foods that are always stocked. If you don't have them, it's a 911 emergency. You will never catch me without eggs. You will never catch me.
I was just going to say eggs. Eggs is a 911 emergency.
It's
and
a
coffee beans. Those
right?
are 911.
Right. Especially lately. It's like, because you don't know if you can find them now. But just having those things always stocked. And this is, I remember after Lori Molnar did Clean and Shred, I think it was the last time, I think she's done it a couple times. She texted me out of the blue, and it was a while after Clean and Shred had ended. And she said, I had one of those days and old Lori would have just thrown caution to the wind and gotten whatever. But because I had stuff stocked, I was like, I can make a meal. And she threw together a meal and she's like, it was great. I feel good about myself. And that's
So
being
empowering.
proactive. Yeah.
Yeah. And something else about that I love so much, and I love our students so much, and I love our community so much, but she was so excited to tell you that. Like knowing that that's going to make you so happy that, hey, Amy, something from a couple of years ago came back when I was feeling weak and it really helped me. I think that is one of the greatest parts of being a coach of anything, but to hear from your students that like, sometimes your voice is in their head and they're making decisions and it's making them think of you, because everybody needs somebody cheering for them, right? We all struggle. We all have hard days and we are all going to make bad decisions sometimes, but to know that there's like a little Amy angel on your shoulder saying like, good job finding a meal in your house when you were having a bad day. It makes it that much more positive. And I do think, I totally agree. I mean, I personally think the Clean and Shred program is a brilliant program. I love it. And I've always been a huge fan of it because I think it takes people's palate in the right direction. I think people don't even realize what processed food is. A lot of times they think they're being really good. And if you really look at it, but I also have the mindset of, I don't want people to feel like they're ever bad. Like, this isn't bad. And I think you do a really good job of that, Amy, of not saying like, okay, right now we're just going to focus on these foods. We're not even focusing on what we can't have. We're just focusing on these foods. And then we're going to add this in. It's such a healthy way to look at food. And that's really, really valuable. I also think that just having a coach is probably the best investment anybody could make. If you're in a financial situation where you can have a life coach, great. But I would say the second best thing would be signing up for one of our nutrition coaching programs, because even though they are very affordable, they are very customized and hands-on, and your voice is heard and your coach is thinking about you. Your coach knows what you like Amy talked about in the beginning. I get to know my students. I know their work schedule. I know what their kids like. I know what their family's going to be like. No way, Jose too. And that's kind of nice to have someone like on the sidelines being like, I got you. I know that this is hard. I know that these are your struggles. I know that these are your pain points. I'm cheering for you. Right?
I think so. And I think, is it Janelle who you had on, who's a CEO coach?
She's a life coach. Yeah.
Yes. I loved her podcast because it really proved that everyone needs a coach.
Oh, yeah.
And CEOs have coaches. Olympic athletes have multiple coaches. Our kids in their sports have coaches. And I think people sometimes feel bad or embarrassed that they need a coach for nutrition. Most of what I am coaching or teaching people, we weren't taught growing up.
Right.
And it's not a reflection on an individual not to know these things. I've spent the last 10 years learning, studying, going to conferences, reading a million books, listening to podcasts, because that's my job. But I don't expect, just like if I go to learn a foreign language, it's going to take coaching and learning on my part. People are learning. You go to an expert to learn about something. And so I think it's very valuable also for us as adults to have someone to kind of help us assimilate everything, because everyone's circumstances are so different. And people will frequently apologizing that, I'm sorry, I'm telling you all this. It's not a therapy session. Actually, it is in a lot of ways. And I'm okay with that because food's very personal. And there's always related to, when I grew up, or I used to enjoy this meal with my mom, or my grandmother taught me to cook this way, or whatever it is, or it's a shared experience. I love it when I can get my clients discussing food with their families. I consider that the biggest win, when they take what we talk about in our sessions and they take it home, and then they come back and say, oh, well, my kids are now doing this, or my spouse is now doing this. And it really can transform an entire family. And I love that, because any advice I'm giving is good really for almost any age. Even in menopause makeover, I tell them like, yes, this is targeted towards menopausal women, but all of this advice is great for anyone in your family.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that when I first started in this space, I kind of chuckled. I'm like almost telling someone that wants to gain weight the same thing as the person that wants to lose weight. It's like the same thing, just a little bit different.
So true.
So it really is interesting to see how relevant good nutrition, and that's just something I want to touch on for a second, because there are so many voices in your head, and we're constantly being bombarded of, like, I'll use vegetarian for a minute, and this is nothing. I mean, we have some true vegetarians for religious reasons. Being a vegetarian is amazing, but I would often have people that aren't vegetarians, but they'd be like, I take this protein powder because it's vegan. I'm like, but are you a vegan? They're like, no. I'm like, but why? Why then? Why wouldn't you take the best that's a bad example. But just they use the vegan, they think they see vegan and it's better. I guess I just feel like there's so much marketing that is so confusing, and people are just trying to do good. They're just trying to be good, and gluten-free is another example. There's candy that's gluten-free, right? I mean, right. It's just, those aren't necessarily just because it's gluten-free. And I've gotten caught on it. I've totally gotten caught on it. I've bought in something, a new product at Costco comes out and it will say sugar-free. And I'm like, awesome. And I look at it and it's like 3 grams of sugar. And I'm like, great. And I get it home and I taste it. I'm like, what's in this? And it's like some crazy sugar that I never even heard of. That's like, it's just, it's really hard. It's really hard. And there's been times when I'll send like a picture of something to Amy and be like, Amy, what is this? I don't even know what this is. So it is really good to have someone that you trust, that's smart, that's educated, that doesn't have an agenda, right? Like there's no agenda. Like we're not trying to force anybody into any style of eating, just real food. I think that is really important.
Yeah. It's funny you said that about the gluten and the vegetarian protein powder, because that is something, especially in Clean and Shred, I tell them, ignore the claims on the front of the package.
Yes,
I don't care what they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to make
clean.
money.
It says clean.
Yes. The front of the package will tell you whatever they can get away with legally saying. And sometimes we just need to, I say zero in, turn it around, look at the ingredients first. If they pass test 1, then go to the nutrition label. Is that within, the sugar grams you want, the protein, the fiber, all those things. And then like, oh, okay, if it passes these tests, then buy it. But we were talking about last night in one of my group meetings about how for the longest time, lots of people have thought they had gluten intolerances. And sometimes what is mistaken for a gluten intolerance is wheat food that is sprayed with Roundup insecticides that can cause similar symptoms, the bloating, the digestive distress. So sometimes it's not what we're being sold as much as the quality of the food we're eating. Yeah. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. Some people do fine with dairy. Some people don't. Some people do fine with, gluten. Some don't. Some like the whey protein powder. Some, it's really, everything's individualized. I think at the same time, we have to be careful not to just, because we read something or our friends doing something that's working for them, assuming it works for us. And that's something I think I've become a little more educated on through the years, is being able to help people individualize based on, their lifestyle and their food tolerances, likes and dislikes, because we're all really different. What may serve me really well may not work really well for Kelly, and vice versa.
100%. Yep. And you start to learn, this is another subject. You start to learn body type. You start to learn, like, you'll be able to figure out what a person can and can't do before they can, but you need to kind of let them go down that road just by sometimes just their body type or their physique, but that's not always the case either. But it is really interesting. Okay, let's do something fun. You mentioned earlier that everybody should have 10 foods in their house that always have stocked in 911 emergency if they don't have for you. One was eggs. What would be some more?
I always have some type of lean protein,
Hmm?
usually either chicken or ground turkey, because that's what I get at Costco. And so I always have that. I always have Greek yogurt. We go through a lot of Greek yogurt in my house, and
Do you buy your Greek yogurt
berries.
at Wegmans though, right? Not Costco?
Oh no, I get the Costco,
Oh,
the
good.
plain,
Which one?
the Kirkland, I think plain organic. I
Yep.
think it's zero fat, I think. I buy like 3 or 4 at a time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm the non-dairy, so that does not sound good to me.
Most of it
You can
is
use it as a marinade. It's great. I have
yes,
to be
we
sparing
use it
with
a
it, but
lot. Most of it is not
that's
me,
a
but I
very
do.
affordable protein source. That's a
Yes.
good one.
So I got lean protein, eggs, Greek yogurt. I always have some copious amounts of cheese, although it is something I definitely worked on scaling back on
Hmm.
because it's my kryptonite. I like it because it's a quick, easy way to add flavor and some fat to anything, and you don't need a lot. I don't actually like the taste of eggs at all, but if I add a little bit of cheese, and onion would be my fifth because same
Yeah.
reason, it can
Yeah.
flavor and do wonder for anything.
Yeah.
I'd say an ad within the past 6 months to a year is I've gone crazy on sourdough bread.
Hmm.
I've done a lot more research in the past year since hitting menopause on gut microbiome, probiotic foods, and that's something I really am going to work into this next clean and shred that's a little new.
Yeah. That's exciting.
And sourdough bread, real sourdough, like made in a
Yep.
bakery or at home. I don't make it at home, but I get it. Wegmans has a fantastic bakery. So sourdough bread, because I like having at least one piece of bread a day.
Yeah.
I love my bread.
Well, I think that's
Nuts.
the whole point. You shouldn't have to give up. You should have your favorite things.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a good version of it.
Yeah. Nuts. We always have several different
Yeah.
varieties of nuts in our house.
Amy
It's
makes
just,
an amazing roasted nut. And I don't know why. I've been making that nut for a long, or I thought I was, but it just never tastes like that. I don't know why. It never tastes, yours tastes sweeter than mine when I put that amount of sugar. I don't know why. Yours tastes sweet to me and spicy, which is the best combination. Not sweet, like the perfect amount. I just never seem to be able to nail that. Maybe there's a tweak that I need to know.
well, I will admit, when it's almost done cooking, I taste it, and if it needs a tweaking, I'll definitely sprinkle.
So you've got the gift. I don't have all that yet. Okay, all right. But I'm like trying to be good about Amy. It's like 2 tablespoons of sugar. So I was like 2 teaspoons in the whole batch. I'm like, this tastes really sweet for 2 teaspoons. Okay, well, you just ruined those nuts for me.
Exactly.
Not really. I'm still gonna eat them. I love them. They're my favorite. Okay, well, this has been really, really fun. I hope that our listeners got some great information, and I hope that they consider doing a nutrition coaching program because I think there's such great value in it. We do have, Amy, why don't you tell them so I don't screw up the details of the new coaching program that we have starting in just a few weeks.
So Clean and Shred will start right after spring break for us here locally. So let me double check that date so I don't mess it up. April 23rd will be our first meeting.
Okay.
This one will be
So after Easter.
Yes. After the Wednesday after Easter, and it will
Remember, guys,
run through the end of May.
Ooh, that's so perfect for summer.
Yeah. So I find
do
that
it this year. I've never done it. I kind of done my own version, but right now we're giving up desserts, and that's killing me. But anyway, sorry.
Ouch. Yeah, I can't imagine. So I like a spring program because everybody thinks about their body right before summer comes, right?
Absolutely.
You're going on vacation, you're wearing shorts, tank tops, bathing suits. It's just a good time to rein things back in. And for our community especially, you've had a little break if you've done Winter Challenge or did some stuff in January. You've had a little break from the intensity of that.
Oh, people are ready.
And after spring break, right. So I think it's a good thing. It can be done all virtually. I've had people from Richmond, Virginia. I've had people from Texas. Meg Gray did a program from the UK. Really, Deb Kelly did it when she was in Colorado. So
amazing.
Really, and what I really love the most is at some point it shifts from people learning from just me. They're learning from each other. I just kind of sit back and listen.
Yeah.
So they're sharing meal plans and they're like, oh, look what so-and-so's making for dinner. I didn't think of that. Or
I totally love that.
So it can be done it all is all virtual. I love in-person programming too, but this just works better. I think this time of year tends to be a busy time of year.
Yeah.
And we can connect, and then everybody can kind of stay, connected through our virtual formats but still have time to do their own thing on their own.
So good. So good. I love the weekly assignments and giving them time and being really structured and disciplined and making them be accountable. There's so many valuable aspects to this program, and you do such a good job as a coach, and you're so organized, and everyone just raves about you for those reasons. But the thing I hear the most, which will always be number one in my book, is that you make it fun. And if it's fun, then they're gonna come back. And that's all it takes, guys. You have to have an element of something that you enjoy. We're not here to be bored. So Amy, you are just such a great, inspiring light in our community, obviously with your classes and your nutrition coaching and all you do to support KBC. I'm so incredibly grateful for you. It was really fun to talk specifically about nutrition coaching today. I think this was probably our most specific podcast, and I think it was really valuable. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment, share, and if there's anything that you heard today that you have a question specifically for Amy, I will make sure that her contact information, our accounts are basically connected, but I will make sure you'll very easily be able to connect with her. Thank you so much, Amy. I got to go teach now. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Start Before You're Ready. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who might need a little motivation. Ready to start your own journey? Check out our workouts and nutrition coaching programs at kellysbootcamp.net. You can choose from in-person sessions or virtual programs. Set up a complimentary coaching session to get started. Follow along with me and the show on social media at Kellys_bootcamp. Until next time, this is Kelly Young reminding you that the best time to start is always now.